They told me I was overreacting. That Mia was just being dramatic. That it was probably a bruise, maybe a sprain. But when I saw her lying there, pale, silent, and shaking, I knew something was broken. And not just her leg. It was the moment I stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. My name is Danielle Cooper. I'm 33. A high school English teacher. And the mother of a 12-year-old girl named Mia, bright, brave, and full of curiosity. 6 months ago, I made a decision I'll never forget. I left Mia with my parents for 3 days while I attended a conference in Seattle. They live in a cabin near Crater Lake. Beautiful, peaceful, postcard perfect. But behind that view lies a family dynamic I've tried to ignore my whole life. My father, Douglas, is a retired ER surgeon. My mother, Linda, a former school principal. And my younger brother, Eric? The golden child. An orthopedic surgeon who thinks he's God's gift to medicine, and to himself. I thought they'd keep Mia safe. They said they'd take her hiking. I didn't know that hike would end with a broken bone, and 3 hours of pure agony. Not only did they not call me, they didn't call anyone. They made her walk, on a snapped tibia, just to get back in time for a dinner party. So before I take you deeper into how I found out, how I confronted them, and how this one weekend changed everything about what I believed family meant, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to realize they cared more about being right than doing what's right? Because that's what this story is really about. And if you're a parent, you might not sleep easy after hearing what happened next. Mia had been looking forward to that weekend more than I had expected. She packed her own bag, carefully folding her fleece hoodie, choosing her favorite trail shoes, and sneaking in a book she knew Grandma wouldn't approve of, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. "Mom, I know they're strict, but it's only 3 days," she said, eyes wide, voice calm. "I'll be fine." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Crater Lake in early spring is stunning. The forest still holds a bite of winter, but the sky teases warmth. My parents' cabin overlooks a slope of evergreens and quiet water. From the outside, it's the kind of place you'd find on the cover of a retirement brochure. Inside, it's a little colder. Not in temperature, but in tone. My mother had texted me that morning. "Don't forget to pack Mia's allergy meds. We won't have time to pick anything up if you forget. No, good luck at your conference. No, drive safe." Just a reminder, and an implication that I might mess it up. When we arrived, they were already on the porch. My dad, Douglas, in his ever-present navy cardigan, waved at Mia and barely looked at me. 7-mile loop tomorrow. Rain or shine, he called out. She'll love it. Mia's smile faltered. 7, she whispered. We usually do the 3-mile trail. My mom, Linda, stepped in, fussing with Mia's coat. This jacket's too thin. I laid out more appropriate layers in the guest room. Then to me, really, Danielle, she's 12, not 5. You still dress her like it's kindergarten. I bit my tongue. I'd learned not to argue. It was like handing them ammo. Eric pulled in an hour later, predictably late and unapologetic. He parked his shiny black SUV across the gravel. Sunglasses still on even though the sun had started to dip. There's my favorite niece, he shouted, scooping Mia into a hug before she could react. Ready for an actual adventure? His tone was always performative. Big laughs, big promises, big stories. Mia adored it. I tried not to mind. Still, something felt off. When I pulled my mother aside before leaving, I made one last effort. She's been having knee pain, from soccer. Nothing serious. But if she complains, please don't push her. Linda's expression tightened. Douglas was a surgeon for 30 years. Danielle. Eric's a doctor too. We know how to handle a sore knee. It's not about credentials, I said carefully. It's about listening to her. My mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. She's a child. They all exaggerate. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But instead, I said the same words I'd been saying since I was 10. Okay. I hugged Mia at the front steps. She smelled like vanilla shampoo and confidence. Call me before bed? I whispered. I will, she promised. Love you, Mom. I watched her stand between them, my parents on either side, Eric behind. And for a second, I felt like I was leaving her in a museum. Like I was handing over something fragile to people who valued appearance more than care. That night in Seattle, I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone during the keynote dinner. Nothing. By 9 p.m., I called the cabin. No answer. I texted Mia. Message undelivered. Finally, my father picked up on the fourth call. She's asleep, he said flatly. Long day. Can you wake her? Just for a minute? Danielle, don't be dramatic. She needs rest. Not the separation anxiety you've created. He hung up. And I, stupidly, let it go. I didn't sleep well that night. The hotel bed was too soft, the room too quiet. I kept staring at my phone, watching the time inch forward. Wondering if Mia was really okay, or just pretending to be, like I had so many times in that house. Saturday morning came. I had back-to-back sessions at the conference. I gave my presentation on literature and empathy in the modern classroom to a packed room of educators. People clapped. A few took notes. One woman even asked if I'd consider mentoring her. And still, all I could think about was whether my daughter's knee had held up on that trail. I checked my phone. Nothing. I told myself not to spiral. That I was just being overprotective. That silence meant everything was fine. But deep down, the silence felt louder than anything else. It wasn't just mother's instinct. It was lived experience. I had grown up in that silence. The kind where pain was met with cold logic, where being believed depended on how useful you were. I once played an entire softball game with a fractured wrist. My dad said it was just a bruise. When I cried that night, my mom handed me an ice pack and told me to stop being so sensitive. That was the house Mia was sleeping in. And I had left her there. According to Mia, the morning started like any other at the cabin. She woke early, the smell of pancakes drifting through the hallway. Grandpa Douglas had made them, crispy-edged the way she liked. Her knee ached a little from yesterday's activity, stacking firewood, helping clean the deck, but she didn't mention it. She wanted to be low maintenance. Like Grandma always praised Eric for being. They left for the hike around 9 a.m. The plan was a 7-mile loop to a viewpoint overlooking the lake. Too far. Mia thought, but she didn't say that out loud. Grandpa carried a small backpack with water and granola bars. Eric had his smartwatch. His GoPro clipped to his chest like he was documenting a National Geographic expedition. Grandma wore hiking poles, though she insisted they were just for balance. Before they left, Mia reached for her phone, more out of habit than need. But Grandma took it from her hands. No electronics in nature, she said firmly. Time to unplug. Mia hesitated. But what if? You'll be fine. You're with 3 capable adults. The trail started easy. Wide and soft underfoot, with little bursts of wildflowers poking through the brush. Mia kept pace in the back, humming a tune from the audiobook she'd just finished. But by mile 2, things changed. The path narrowed, hugging the edge of a slope slick from melted snow. Eric forged ahead, calling out occasional facts like a tour guide. Did you know Crater Lake is the deepest lake in the U.S.? No one asked, but he kept going anyway. Douglas followed behind, determined to keep up. Linda, ever competitive, trailed close. No one looked back. Mia tried to match their pace, but her right knee began to throb. She stumbled once. Caught herself. Said nothing. She didn't want to be dramatic. Then, at mile 3.5, her foot slipped on a mossy rock. Her leg twisted, and she collapsed onto the ground with a cry that echoed through the trees. The sound brought them all running, finally. Eric reached her first. What happened? I fell, Mia whimpered. It hurts, so bad, I heard something crack. She tried to sit up. Screamed. Her right leg throbbed with a pain she couldn't describe. Eric crouched down, peeled up the hem of her pants. A swelling bulge had already formed. Her shin was beginning to bruise, turning a sickening purplish hue. He froze for a second, too long. Looks like a fracture, he muttered, glancing quickly at Douglas. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. A silent agreement. Douglas checked his watch. We've got dinner at the Langstons at 7. If we hike back now, we'll make it in time. Mia whimpered, we can cancel. But Eric cut in. His tone forced cheerful. Let's just take it slow. She's walking. That's a good sign. We can cancel, Mia pleaded. Linda folded her arms. We've had this on the calendar for months. Mia looked at Eric. Surely he'd speak up. He was the doctor. The uncle who brought her books, who laughed at her Percy Jackson jokes. But now, he just shrugged. His eyes didn't meet hers. She's walking. She's not screaming anymore. Probably just a sprain. Let's keep moving. I don't think I can, Mia's voice cracked. You'll feel better once you warm up, Linda cut in. And just like that, it was decided. They gave her a stick. Told her to lean on it. She took one step, and nearly collapsed. The next 3 hours were a blur. Each step sent lightning through her leg. She cried at first, but no one stopped. Eric told her stories from medical school to distract her. Douglas barked reminders about posture. Linda kept pace ahead, never looking back. No one offered to carry her. By the time they reached the house, Mia's body was trembling. Her leg was grotesquely swollen. The bruising stretching from ankle to knee. She couldn't lift it anymore. Couldn't bend it. Couldn't speak. Only then did Douglas and Eric help her walk the last few hundred feet. At the cabin, they gave her ibuprofen and propped her leg on a stack of pillows. Linda brought a bowl of soup, told her to rest. Then they all went to shower. Changed into formal clothes. And left for dinner. Mia watched them go from the upstairs window. The sky was darkening. Her pain was blinding. She reached for the landline beside the bed. Dead. Later. She'd learned a tree had knocked it out earlier that week. She lay there alone for hours, sweating, crying, drifting in and out of fitful sleep. At some point, she whispered, Mom, where are you? But I wasn't there. Not yet. By Sunday morning, I was pacing the hotel hallway, phone glued to my hand, barely pretending to sip the coffee I'd grabbed 3 hours earlier. No calls. No texts. No updates. Something was wrong. Deeply, undeniably wrong. I skipped the final workshop. Told the conference team there was a family emergency. They were kind. Offered to box up materials for me. But I was already halfway to the elevator before they finished speaking. The drive from Seattle to Crater Lake felt longer than ever. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly. My knuckles turned white. I tried not to imagine the worst, but my mind filled in the silence with every possibility. Dead phone? Maybe. No signal? Probably. But no effort to check in, not even once? That wasn't like Mia. She never missed a good night, Mom. By the time I turned onto the gravel path that led to the cabin, my heart was pounding in my throat. All three cars were parked out front: Douglas's SUV, Linda's silver Volvo, Eric's flashy black Lexus. At least they were home. I didn't even knock. Just pushed the door open and walked inside. They were in the living room, sitting around the coffee table, playing Scrabble. Linda looked up first. "Danielle? We weren't expecting you until tonight." I ignored her. "Where's Mia?" "She's resting," Eric said without looking up from his tiles. "She had a little tumble on the hike." "No big deal." My stomach turned. "What kind of tumble?" "She slipped on the trail," Douglas chimed in. "Got a bruise." "We've been icing it." "If it's just a bruise, why hasn't she called me?" "Why haven't you?" "The landline's down," Linda said. "And you know cell reception is spotty out here." I was already walking down the hall. "Wait, Danielle," Eric started. But I didn't stop. I pushed open the guest room door and froze. Mia was lying on the bed, pale and trembling. Her leg, elevated on a stack of pillows, was swollen beyond recognition. Purple, black, and green bruises wrapped around her shin like a cruel piece of modern art. Her eyes opened when she saw me, and tears immediately welled up. "Mom," she whispered. "You came early." I rushed to her side, brushing hair from her damp forehead. "What happened, sweetheart? Tell me everything." Her voice broke as she spoke, halting, ashamed, exhausted. She told me about the fall. The snap. The pain. How they told her she was fine. How they made her walk. How she begged for her phone. How they said dinner was more important. "They didn't believe me, Mom," she said softly. "I kept telling them it hurt so bad. But they just kept walking." Rage boiled in my chest. A heat I couldn't contain. I turned as the others gathered at the doorway, watching me with thin-lipped discomfort. "You made her walk on this?" I pointed at her leg. "We gave her ibuprofen," Linda said quickly. "She stopped crying after a while." "Because she was in shock." I snapped. "You left her alone." "We had a commitment," Douglas defended. "Long-standing dinner plans. And she's a child." My voice cracked. "She needed a doctor. Not dinner plans. Not guesses. Not more denial." Eric raised his hands, defensive. "It looked like a minor fracture, okay? I've seen worse. She was able to stand. She should never have been made to." I shouted. "You're an orthopedic surgeon. And you told her to walk it off?" His face tightened. "You're overreacting." I turned back to Mia, stroking her hair. "You're going to be okay, baby. We're going to the hospital now." "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. But I'm here now." I gathered her carefully into my arms. She weighed almost nothing. It was like carrying the guilt of every moment I hadn't been there. As I made my way to the front door, Linda trailed behind. "We should come with you." "No," I said without turning. "You've done enough." I carried my daughter to the car, gently propping her leg with folded towels from the trunk. As I started the engine, she reached for my hand. "You believe me, right?" she whispered. I blinked hard to keep my voice steady. "Always." The drive to the hospital felt endless. Every bump in the road made Mia wince in pain. Her hands gripping the seatbelt as if that could keep the agony from spreading. I called ahead while driving, explaining the injury, the delay in care, the swelling. The nurse on the phone was calm but firm. "Bring her straight to emergency. We'll be ready." By the time we pulled up to the ER entrance, 2 nurses were already waiting with a wheelchair. Mia bit her lip so hard she drew blood as they lifted her from the car. I followed them into the building, heart hammering, rage simmering beneath every breath. A young doctor introduced herself as Dr. Eliza Moreno, pediatric orthopedist on call. She knelt by Mia's side. "Hi there, sweetheart. We're going to take some pictures of your leg. Give you something for the pain, okay? Mia nodded, silent tears streaking down her cheeks. Dr. Moreno turned to me. Do you know when the injury occurred? I swallowed. Yesterday. Around noon. They made her walk 3 miles afterward. Then left her alone for several hours. Her eyes widened just slightly. She didn't comment. Just said softly, we'll take care of her now. X-rays were taken immediately. Pain meds administered through and 4. And then we waited. I sat beside Mia's bed, holding her hand, brushing her hair off her forehead. She was drowsy from the medication, her breathing shallow, the line of her brow still drawn in pain. Dr. Moreno returned 20 minutes later with a folder in her hand. Her expression was serious. It's a displaced fracture of the tibia, she said, pointing to the image on the X-ray. The bone has shifted significantly. See here? It's no longer aligned. I stared at the ghostly white lines on the black background. My stomach dropped. Had this been treated immediately, she continued, we likely could have used a cast. But walking on it has worsened the soft tissue damage and increased the risk of complications. What kind of complications? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Compartment syndrome. Infection, long-term instability. We'll need to operate today to prevent those risks. Surgery? I exhaled. On a 12-year-old? She nodded. With proper care, kids heal incredibly well. But time is crucial now. I turned back to Mia, her face pale under the hospital lights. She needed surgery. Because my family didn't believe her. Because they chose social appearances over her cries for help. An hour later, as the surgical team prepped the room, I was pacing the hallway when I saw them, Douglas, Linda, and Eric, walking into the waiting area. Linda was clutching a reusable coffee cup. Douglas looked annoyed. Eric wore his usual mask of thin patience. What are you doing here? I asked, arms crossed. We came to check on Mia, Linda said. We were worried. You weren't worried enough to stay last night. She said it hurt, Eric said, shrugging. But kids say that all the time. If I overreacted to every stubbed toe. It wasn't a stubbed toe. My voice rose. She broke her tibia, Eric. She needs surgery. Real surgery. Not ice and crackers. Now calm down. Douglas said in that familiar patronizing tone. Doctors overdiagnose all the time. Hospitals love a good surgery, it's billable. I stared at him in disbelief. You seriously think they're doing this for money? Danielle, you've always been emotional, Linda chimed in. You dramatize everything. Is that what you think this is? Drama? My voice dropped. She walked on a broken leg because you couldn't miss a dinner. They said nothing. You didn't call me. You didn't call anyone. You let her believe she was being too sensitive, just like you always did to me. Eric stepped forward. You're not seriously blaming us for this, are you? We made a judgment call. Yeah. And now she's going under general anesthesia. I looked at each of them. Really looked. The same people who dismissed my fears as a child. Who rolled their eyes at my tears. Who raised me to doubt my own pain. And now, they'd done the same to Mia. Except this time, I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. You don't get to be here when she wakes up, I said quietly. You lost that right. Linda's eyes filled with tears. But we're her grandparents. Not anymore. You're making a huge mistake, Douglas warned. No, I replied. I made the mistake yesterday. By trusting you. Just then, a nurse appeared at the door. They're ready. I turned back to the hallway without another word, following her toward the OR. As they wheeled Mia in, she looked up at me. You'll be here when I wake up? I bent down and kissed her forehead. Always. Mia's surgery lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of pacing, worrying. Reliving every word I'd said, and didn't say, during that drop-off. I watched the doors like they might burst open with some new horror. But eventually, Dr. Moreno returned. Pulling off her gloves with a tired but confident nod. "She did great," she said. "We placed 2 pins and aligned the bone successfully. She'll be sore, but she's going to be okay." Relief hit me like a wave. I almost collapsed. "She's in recovery now," the doctor added gently. "You can see her in about 15 minutes. I sat down in the hard plastic chair and stared at the floor. My breath was shaking. My hands were shaking. And still, all I felt was fire. How did it come to this? How did people who once held me as a baby now ignore my daughter's screams? When I walked into Mia's recovery room, she was still groggy, her voice soft and slurred. "Mom? I'm here," I whispered, squeezing her hand. They didn't believe me. My chest tightened. "I know, baby. But I do. And I always will." That night, I didn't leave her side. I watched the heart monitor beep steadily. I refilled her water. Held her hand through every twinge of pain. And while she slept, I opened my laptop. I filed a formal report with Child Protective Services. Detailed every minute of that hike, every hour she was left untreated, every lie they told me. It felt impossible, turning in my own parents. My own brother. But Mia wasn't going to grow up learning silence the way I had. She wasn't going to be taught that love meant tolerating pain. The next morning, a hospital social worker came to speak with me. She had already read the medical report and looked grim. "You made the right call," she said. "You'd be shocked how many cases like this never get reported." I was scared to say something. I admitted. "That's how they count on staying in control," she said quietly. By noon, CPS had flagged the case for investigation. They would be interviewing Mia after discharge. Possibly contacting the family. I felt nauseous. I felt guilty. I felt like a mother doing what she was supposed to do. Back at the cabin, news must have spread fast. Because by that afternoon, my phone rang. "Linda." I let it go to voicemail. Then Eric called. Then Douglas. Finally, an unknown number. I picked up. "Danielle," my father's voice boomed, "you're going too far." "Too far?" I snapped. "She has pins in her leg, Dad. Because you thought dinner was more important than her health. You're twisting things. Making us out to be monsters. You're not monsters." I said flatly. "You're just not safe." There was a long pause on the line. "We'll fight this." "You think you can take away our granddaughter over a sprain?" "It wasn't a sprain. But thanks for confirming your denial is still intact." I hung up. That night, I received an email from their lawyer, yes. Their lawyer, demanding visitation rights and accusing me of emotional manipulation. I forwarded it straight to mine. My attorney, Angela Briggs, was calm and focused. "They're going to try to spin this," she warned. "Frame it as a misunderstanding. Say you're being vindictive." "I don't care what they say," I told her. "My daughter is not going back into that house." "Then we document everything," she said. Hospital records, therapist notes, Mia's own statement. We build your case brick by brick. By the end of the week, I filed a restraining order. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried into my pillow. Days when Mia asked, "Do they hate me now?" But over time, the fog started to clear. Mia began physical therapy. She decorated her cast with purple glitter stickers and named the pins in her leg after Greek gods. She smiled again. One day, in the middle of stretching exercises, she said quietly, "I'm glad it broke." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "Because now I know what people really are when it matters." I had no words for that. Just tears. 3 weeks later, Mia was walking again. Not without help, she still used crutches, and the physical therapy made her groan more days than not. But she moved with purpose. With strength. With something I hadn't seen in her before, certainty. The kind of certainty I had spent most of my life chasing. Her therapist, Jenna, said the progress was exceptional. But what struck me wasn't just the healing of bone, it was the healing of voice. Mia started speaking more boldly. When she didn't want to do something, she said so. When a friend at school teased her for the cast, she told the teacher. And one night, over grilled cheese sandwiches, she asked me, "Do you think Grandma was always like this?" I paused. "She's always been someone who believed her way was the only way," I said carefully. "And if you didn't follow it, she made you feel small." Mia nodded. "I don't want to feel small anymore." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You won't," I said. "Not as long as I'm around." But the truth was, I had to stop feeling small too. That weekend, I drove out to the cabin one last time. Alone. The forest smelled like damp pine and smoke from a distant chimney. The cabin stood still, almost too quiet, like it knew it was no longer home. I didn't come for closure. I came for honesty. Douglas and Linda were waiting inside. Eric wasn't there. He'd sent a terse email saying he was consulting legal options and had nothing more to discuss. Figures. Linda looked older, somehow. Douglas, stiffer. Less sure. "I didn't come here to fight," I began. "I came to tell you something." They said nothing, so I continued. "I used to think keeping the peace meant keeping silent. That love meant forgiving everything, even the things that hurt the most." I looked them both in the eyes. "But that's not love. That's fear. And I'm done being afraid of you." Linda's lip trembled. "We didn't mean to hurt her." "You didn't mean to see her," I replied. "You meant to see a version of her that didn't ask too much. That didn't make you late for dinner. That didn't have needs." Douglas cleared his throat. "We made a mistake." "You made a choice," I said. "And so am I." I pulled a folded letter from my coat pocket. Legal notice. Restricting all visitation and communication unless supervised and court-approved. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. "Danielle, please." "I'm not doing this out of spite," I said quietly. "I'm doing this because my daughter deserves a safe life. A loud life. One where she's never afraid to say it hurts." Douglas looked away. "So that's it, then?" "For now," I said. "Maybe forever." "That's up to you." I left without another word. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Months passed. Mia's cast came off. The pins were removed. She joined the school art club. Started painting stormy skies and forests and, once, a girl standing at the edge of a cliff, but smiling. I started writing again. Not just academic papers, but essays. Pieces about motherhood. About breaking cycles. About what healing really looks like. One of them got picked up by a parenting magazine. The editor asked if I'd be open to writing a monthly column. I said yes. Last week. Mia asked me if we could take a road trip this summer. Not to Crater Lake, she said. But to the coast. Somewhere with waves and open space and no family rules. I smiled. "We'll bring snacks." "Right?" I asked. She laughed. "And a backup phone charger. Just in case." Smart girl. I used to think standing up for yourself meant burning bridges. But now I know, it means choosing which ones are worth crossing again. Maybe one day, those people will understand what they lost. But today? Today, my daughter knows that her voice matters. That her pain is real. That love listens. And me? I finally learned what kind of mother I want to be. Not the kind who teaches survival. but the kind who teaches safety. The kind who shows her daughter how to live loud and walk proud, even with a scar down her shin.